Welcome back to these series of lectures. This is Western Civ, Part 1. In our last short lecture, we talked about the Battle of Agincourt during the 100 Years' War and how it contributed to the decline of feudal institutions and to the rise of the modern nation state. In this lecture, we're going to talk about what's called the new monarchs. The new monarchs are those kings that are going to emerge here in the 16th, 17th centuries, sometimes called absolute monarchs because of their great power. What we see here is a transition from weak, decentralized, feudal kingdoms to much more powerful, centrally organized, emerging nation states. The factors that play into this, not only the inefficiency of the nobility in collecting taxes and doing the fighting for the king, but there are a couple of other factors here too. One is the Protestant Reformation, which we've talked about. And the Reformation shatters the Christian unity of Europe. It shatters that sense of a united Christendom and promotes the rise of individual countries instead. Quite often, the people of a kingdom or a duchy will simply follow the religious leanings of the leader of that duchy, the prince or the king, what have you. So there is an emerging nationalism replacing the old idea of unity through Christianity. Another factor is the decline of Latin. We've talked about the vernacular language. And the rise of vernacular language is going to contribute to nationalism as well. It's no accident that countries are organized by language. In France, they speak French. So the decline of Latin, the emergence of the vernacular, the shattering of the Christian unity of Europe through the Reformation, these are going to contribute to the rise of the modern nation state. And we see this in the 16th and 17th centuries with the rise of these absolute monarchs. I'll give you a couple of examples here of these absolute monarchs. First, some of my students have asked before about why Eric the Red and the Norsemen aren't given credit for the discovery of the Western Hemisphere. They were clearly in Iceland, and then after that Greenland, and then Newfoundland, and the very northeast portions of what today we call North America. But we tend to give credit to Columbus, do we not? The question here is why? Well, the answer is fairly simple. The Norsemen did make their way to the northeast fringes of North America around the first millennium of the Common Era. But the Norsemen could not sustain those colonies for a variety of reasons. Some historians have talked about the Little Ice Age, which made trade and transportation much more difficult in the 14th century. Other historians have pointed out the fact that the Norsemen did not have a centralized government powerful enough, wealthy enough to sustain such an imperial project as extending Norse civilization all the way to North America. Indeed, within a few hundred years, these Viking civilizations, or Viking settlements is probably a better word, withered away because they simply could not be sustained. Now, contrast that with the monarchs of Spain, Isabella and Ferdinand, and their client, Christopher Columbus. Isabella, of course, was the Queen of Castile, and Ferdinand ruled over Aragon. When these two regions were brought together through marriage, the creation of modern Spain was the result. And the monarchs of Spain, Isabella and Ferdinand, did have the power and the wealth, the bureaucracy to sustain an imperial project. And of course, that was begun by Columbus in 1492. And New Spain stayed in existence for, until 1898, the Spanish-American War. So the Spanish monarchs were much more powerful, much wealthier, had greater access to the resources of their country than did the Norse leadership of 400 years earlier. Another good example, perhaps, of the new monarch would be King Henry the VIII of England. Most people know something about Henry VIII. He's probably the most famous of the English kings. We know him in part because of the 6 wives and his rather brutal treatment of these wives, of some of them at least. Henry VIII is an example of the new monarchs because of the Reformation. Henry had been a devout Catholic. I believe he was awarded the title the Defender of the Faith. But, as we know, Henry broke with the Catholic Church. The church refused to award him an annulment so that he could marry Anne Boleyn. So Henry, in response to this, breaks with the Catholic Church, creates the Anglican Church in England, puts himself at the head of this church, and thus becomes easily the wealthiest and most powerful monarch in northwestern Europe. At a stroke, he gains all the church property and church wealth in England, and as the head of the church and as the head of state, becomes immensely powerful. So, 2 good examples of this emerging nationalism, emerging centralized power of the new monarchs, an emerging bureaucracy that is professional in its endeavors, whether it's exploration, military institutions, tax collecting, et cetera, et cetera. We have slowly the emergence of national states, and these new monarchs are at the heart of this. So I'm going to stop there with the new monarchs, and we'll pick this up again in a few moments. Thank you.